Hello, everybody. My name is Brittany Vogel, and I'm your candidate for New York State Assembly in the 107th District. I'm really excited to be doing my second episode of what I'm going to call my podcast to try to share my message with the community, talking about my experience, my perspective, and my insight into the issues and problems that we're dealing with as a community and how I can relate to the same things that you might be dealing with and how I can bring that perspective, insight, and experience to the assembly. Um, so today I want to talk about the opioid and heroin epidemic. It's something that has been going through our community and ravaging our community for several years now, something that I personally have been experienced. Me and my family have experienced for the last 5 years now. Um, and so it's something that is very personal to me and something that I know needs to be addressed in the assembly and hasn't been addressed in the way that it needs to be. So with that, I just kind of wanted to give a background of my story, of the things that I've experienced and how that experience and how my story is going to translate into the assembly. So it starts 5 years ago, and this happens to be my cousin who got addicted to heroin. She started off as, very popular in school, was my role model, had a lot going for her in life. Um, she was in trying to get her bachelor's and master's to get a teaching degree, all of those things. She had everything lined up for her. She got caught up with the wrong people. She um, got influenced by like alcohol, and that kind of just escalated into the opioids and then translated to heroin. A lot of it happened when she had left her boyfriend, and things weren't going well in her life, and just like everybody else that has been trapped by drugs, especially people living in poverty, people that are struggling with homelessness, people that are have feel hopeless in some way or another, find themselves getting addicted to drugs and substances that try to relieve their pain that they're feeling. So my cousin got trapped in that. She's my older cousin, so she was a role model to me. But when she started using heroin, it really changed everything for my family. It really ripped apart, the fabric that held our family together. There's people that were trying to defend her at all levels. There were people that were trying to, excommunicate her in certain ways. And then there was everyone in the middle that were, not trying to pick a side, just trying to see how it was going to turn out. And that really caused a big divide in our family. She went to rehab several times. She, got several different treatments, and nothing really worked for her. Um, right now, she's actually serving time in prison, and this was a drug-related offense that she, that made her end up in jail. And I remember, over the last few years, we were always waiting for that call. Is she going to, are we going to get the phone call that she has died, or are we going to get that phone call that she's in jail? And, to our benefit and to our luck, it was that she was in jail, as sad as that seems. You know, once you get addicted to those kind of drugs, especially heroin, your whole life starts to revolve around those drugs. You don't care about the people that you're hurting, that you're lying to, that you're stealing from, that you're going against their back and straight to your face. Those things, they don't care about that anymore. It really is a drug that takes over your whole mind and body and soul. And I think that my perspective, having my cousin in prison right now, trying to get better, trying to see that there's more to life, and that there's hope in everything that she's been through. And she did tell me some of the stories that she's been through. She told me that she was living in vacated houses in Schenectady. She eventually, her parents were very trying to help her so much, all the time, doing everything they could to support her and try to get her better. But there's always a time where it's like you have to be on your own. And they got to that point, and she was on her own, and she was with her boyfriend, who was also addicted to heroin. He actually ended up passing away from heroin addiction, which was devastating even more to her. Um, Overall, she said that she had lost 17 people that she was close with to drug-related overdoses. And I can't imagine losing 17 people in my life to drug overdoses. So those experiences that she has, and the way that it impacted my family, the pain that's still in my family, although we have so much hope that she is going to get better. She was released on bail for a few months after being in jail for several months. They weren't going to pay her bail, but she had seen, it was almost like she had seen the light. So they were trying to give her a chance before she spent her prison time, depending on her sentence. So she had spent Easter 2019 with our family, because my family always gets together on the holidays at my parents' house. And she was there, and it really was the first time I seen her as a totally, completely different person. She had been sober for several months now because prison made her, which I think was a blessing in disguise, because it really gave her the opportunity to reflect and think about what she wanted in life. She was a completely different person. She got to tell us all the stories that she's been through. She got to own up to all of the things she had done to our family, everything that she had, the lying and stealing and manipulation and all of that kind of stuff. She was able to finally see what she had done from our perspective. When you're addicted to heroin, you don't care about anybody around you. It's only about, when am I going to get my next, when am I get my next high? When am I going to find more money to get more drugs? So that really personal experience, I could talk about it all day, about things that were done, and to rehash the history, it's not the most important part, but it's about moving forward. And now, how is she going to, when she does get out of jail, how are we going to make sure that she doesn't fall back in the traps of addiction? What kind of things in our society are lined up for her to make sure that she can stay on track? And right now, I don't think that there is enough in line, and from a legislative policy agenda perspective. I think there's so much more that we can do. Um, that's only one of the stories that I have, one of the experiences. I have another experience, and this one is something that still gets me every time I think about it. It's very personal to me. It's something that, in my young life as a manager, as a leader, it hit me really, really hard, and something that still bothers me to this day. So it was 2014, 15. I was a bakery manager, just started as a bakery manager. I think I was 22 years old, and I had a lot of employees. Well, I didn't have a lot of employees at that time. I had probably like 10 employees. One of them was this girl. She was my cake decorator. She was graduating high school. She was beautiful. She, had so many friends. She had so much going for her. And she was just starting to live her life, and then one day I got a phone call that she wasn't going to be in to work that day. I asked why it wasn't her calling. Usually, you have to call yourself in. And I found out that her mother had died. And when I found out her mother had died, that it was from an opioid overdose, it was something that hit me so hard. See, I'm like, I can't even today, it like hits me so hard every time I talk about it. Because her mother is, she was only 19, I was 22, we're not that far apart. And for her to just have that kind of experience, like, she just loses her mother out of nowhere, and now for the rest of her life, she doesn't have her mom. So that definitely impacted me, and still impacts me very much so. Every single time I think about the opioid crisis and epidemic, and how much people have suffered, and how many families have been, ripped apart, how many children have lost their parents to this crisis. And I just think we can do so much better. There was no reason for her mom to have passed. I think there's so many people responsible for it. The pharmaceutical companies who were pushing those drugs onto the doctors, who, for every excuse and reason to have those kind of drugs pushed on people, it led to this explosion of people overdosing. And unfortunately, she didn't have Narcan available to her when that happened. My cousin, on the other hand, she had overdosed 3 or 4 times and was saved by Narcan. So I'm very grateful that my cousin has a different outcome, has a different story. But then again, someone that was so close to me, someone that I, looked after, was, the manager of, just had her entire life ripped away from her. Her mother, losing her mother like that, you don't come back from that. So luckily she's struggling through it. She's still dealing with it. It's not something that you easily get over. And that was 5 years ago. And it still impacts me like this today. So, for me, running for assembly, these are the things that I really think we need to address on a human level. It's not left or right. It doesn't matter what party you're in. Everyone in our community is being affected by this. And I just think there's so much more we can do. In terms of policy, the things that I want to see done, I want to stop looking at drug addiction and substance abuse in a criminal way. It needs to be dealt with on a healthcare way, in a healthcare vision, where why are they succumbing to these addictions, and how can we help them on a mental health, on a health based issue rather than a criminal issue. Yes, when you take those drugs and you do bad things, you should be held accountable. You still have that. My cousin is serving her time. She understands why she's serving her time, and she's doing so because she understands the accountability behind it. But if someone had gone to her 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and actually helped her in a mental health way, in a healthcare related way, to help her get past that abuse, addiction and substance abuse, she may not be there today. And with my employee's mom, like, if someone had been there to not prescribe her those prescriptions, or to not have that access as easily as those opioids were accessible at that time. I know that there has been more done now to restrict it, but there's still a lot of access to it. And why do people go to those kind of drugs? What are the underlying reasons why someone would choose to do heroin, would choose to take pills and other drugs? And a lot of it is our society as a whole is not structured for the mental health of its citizens. And when you think about poverty, when you think about the housing crisis, when you think about education and so many other things, food security, I mean, all of these things that people don't have access to, when all of your hope is gone, when you see nothing good for you coming in the future, you're going to turn to these drugs for some type of solace, solace, and in a way to deal with it. I also have someone really close to my family who is dealing with alcohol abuse and alcohol. He's an alcoholic. He was sober for a few months, and then the pandemic began, and the classes ended, and it wasn't long after that that he started using alcohol again. Another thing that is very close to me, something that really affects me personally. And I just think, not only was they were going to those classes, but they were extremely expensive. My family doesn't make a lot of money to begin with. So to have classes be, so $200, I think it was like $220 a session. My family can't afford that kind of payment. Like, that's a lot of money for someone that's living paycheck to paycheck. You can't just put that money aside. Like, the healthcare that he has, and the amount that insurance will cover is nothing compared to the kind of treatment that you need, when you've been addicted to some type of substance. It takes more than one class or one rehab to get better at. So I just think overall, and I want to work with anybody who, understands the depth of policy that, changes that need to be made, and people that have experienced it. I want to talk to people and families that are suffering with the same things that I've been suffering with, and see what we can do in the assembly to really make a difference for families and for people. I'm going to leave it at that because I think I've gotten my message across. I hope you can understand how my experience, insight, and perspective is going to be an advantage for us in the assembly. I'm not coming at it, looking at it with no personal experience. I have so much experience from being in the working class, from seeing the same struggles that you guys are dealing with. No matter what side you're on, it really doesn't matter. What matters is that we're all in this together and that we're all trying to move forward and to make a better world for working people. At least that's what I'm trying to do. I don't care if you're left or right. It really doesn't matter at this point, because we're at this point where of survival, where everybody needs to come together. We all need to fight for a better world for us, help our community members and family members that are addicted to these drugs, and trying to show them and giving them the hope that they need and the path forward so that they can lead a successful life and help others that are struggling with the same things. That's my hope for my cousin, is when she gets out, that she can really be a voice and really help people that are struggling right now with those battling those addictions. So thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.